the high number check the compression level, or are you fine?
So, you know, Heidi and I's daughters, Caroline and Kathy, they're 7 and 5. All right, that's very cool. A dog for the campaign. A dog wearing a T-shirt. That is awesome. And this gentleman just pointed out if we were Democrats, he could vote. You know, Caroline and Catherine, they're 7 and 5. And I remember a time a few years back that we brought the girls to Florida. We were down at the beach in Florida on vacation. At the time, Caroline was 3, and Catherine was a little bitty baby. And we were there with some dear friends of ours who have little girls as well. And Caroline wanted to go in the car with a friend. And there wasn't room. And she promptly fell to the floor, threw a fit, started screaming, crying, yelling. I know none of y'all have ever had a child. Well, Heidi is tough. She's very tough, and she sat Miss Caroline down. She gave her a talking to that got that young lady's attention. She straightened up. So we went to dinner. We had a very nice dinner, and that night we went back to the hotel room. And Caroline gets it down on her knees to say her goodnight prayers. And she looks up and she goes, "Dear Jesus, tonight we had a situation. And I'm not sorry, but it's not going to happen again." And I'll tell you, Heidi and I just bit our tongues at that precious, precious, precious prayer of a child. But you know, it really sums up an awful lot of what is happening in this country right now. In those words, we have a situation in this country. America's in crisis. We're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Our constitutional rights are under assault each and every day, and America is receding from leadership in the world. And yet I'm here with a word of hope and encouragement and exhortation. America is waking up. All across Florida, all across this country, people are waking up and they're saying what we're doing doesn't make any sense. You know, I want to talk to you today about one issue that I think is fundamental in this country. The issue of immigration. Immigration is an issue that divides this country. It's an issue that divides the Republican Party. And I want to talk candidly and directly about the challenges we face with immigration, and then about a common sense agenda and solution to fixing the problems we have with immigration. There is a fundamental divide right now in politics as it concerns immigration. In Washington, there is this unholy alliance between K Street and Wall Street. The giant corporations, their view of illegal immigration and amnesty is it's great. It's cheap labor. You drive down labor prices, makes everything cheaper for them. They think it's fantastic. And the sad reality is you have in Washington what I've called the Washington cartel. Career politicians in both parties that get in bed with lobbyists and special interests and grow and grow and grow government. And the Washington cartel is in complete agreement, complete harmony over amnesty. Because from their perspective, it is all upside. And so you see the Democrats pressing for more and more illegal immigration and more amnesty, and you see a whole lot of establishment Republicans saying, that sounds great to us because the same people are writing us checks too. And the people being left behind are the working men and women. The people being left behind are the legal immigrants.
Yes.
The people being left behind are all of us who believe that the Constitution and rule of law matters. Listen, one reason why the establishment Republicans, why the Washington cartel is not troubled by illegal immigration, is not troubled by amnesty, is that none of them are losing their jobs to an illegal immigrant.
Exactly.
It doesn't impact them, as I've observed a number of times. This issue would be fundamentally different if you had a whole bunch of lawyers and bankers swimming the Rio Grande. I'll tell you what, then we'd build a wall.
Yep.
And it'd be huge.
With a pretty door.
Listen, the common sense principles that most of us understand, that most Americans agree with on immigration, they're not complicated. It's legal, good, illegal, bad. Why is that so complicated for anyone in Washington to understand? For journalists, if you say illegal immigration is bad, well, you must hate immigrants. You know what? They say that because they want to shut us up. That's designed to silence the conversation, say, we will not talk about this anymore. Believing in rule of law is entirely consistent with believing we are a nation of immigrants. As you know, I am the son of an immigrant who came legally from Cuba 58 years ago. Came with nothing, with $100 in his underwear, not speaking English, washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour. But filled with hopes and dreams and aspirations. At 18, my dad tells the story of when he first started washing dishes. Now, why did he get that job? He got that job because you didn't have to speak English to take a dish, stick it under a hot water, and scrub it. You could do that in any language. But they had these big rubber gloves they told him to wear. He put on the gloves, and within about 2 minutes, hot water went down the gloves and was scalding his arms. So by the first day, he decided to heck with the gloves. He pulled them off entirely, and every day he went to work, his arms were bright red like lobsters just under the hot water. But that experience, every one of us has that experience. That's who we are. We are all the children of those who risked everything for freedom. And one of the reasons your parents and my parents risked everything to come to America is because we are a nation under rule of law, under the Constitution. We don't violate or ignore our laws. As you know, I represent the state of Texas. We've got roughly 1,200 miles a border on our southern border. You know, the media doesn't like to talk about the problems from illegal immigration. They don't like to talk about the crime. As people cross the borders and commit crimes, and we don't know who's coming in. The media doesn't like to talk about the national security threats, as you have countries that are serious threats with their nationals crossing the southern border that we don't know who they are, we don't know where they're coming from, whether it is ISIS or Ebola. Our ability to detect who's coming into this country and threatening the people of America is negligible as long as the federal government is not securing the borders. You look at the impact on jobs. Today we have the lowest percentage of Americans working than any year since 1977. You know, just earlier today in Florida, I was visiting with a gentleman, the CEO of a cooking company. He described, you know, people like to talk about jobs Americans won't do. He described an interesting experience they had in their factory in the mid-1990s when welfare reform went through. When suddenly there was a requirement that you go and seek a job, he said suddenly they had people lining up at the factory, wanting to work at the factory because of welfare reform was lifting them out of poverty and getting them back on their own feet. And then there's the impact on wages. A steady flow of illegal immigrants coming in, driving down wages, impacts the wages of just about every person here. As I observed in the last debate, if it were a bunch of people coming over with journalism degrees, driving down the wages of the media, then suddenly people would discover, goodness gracious, this must stop. And yet, it was interesting. This debate, I think this debate this week was the best debate we've seen. It was substantive, it was meaty, it got into real distinctions without the moderators insulting and belittling and condescending and attacking everyone. But we saw a real divide on substance and issues. And none was starker than fairly early on in the debate when candidate after candidate began to compose an epic poem in support of amnesty, explaining how compassionate and loving it is to grant amnesty. I gotta tell you, as I was standing there, I suspect my reaction was the same as yours, which my head was exploding. There is nothing compassionate about a politician saying, I'm so compassionate, I'm willing to give away your job. That's not compassionate. And you know what? No other country on earth does this. Try sneaking into Canada, or England, or France, or China. Try sneaking into Mexico. You know, a few months back, I did an interview with Jorge Ramos. He was saying, why would you possibly enforce our immigration laws? I said, Jorge, if I snuck into Mexico right now, what would they do? Deport you. Do our laws not deserve the same respect as every other country on earth? So let me tell you, we're tired of politicians who blow smoke. Enough talk. We're going to solve this. Today, we are rolling out my detailed immigration plan to secure the borders, to restore the rule of law, and to reform legal immigration. It's easy to talk in generalities, but the rubber meets the road on the specifics of what each candidate is willing to do to actually solve this problem.
Right, amen.
Let's start with securing the border. There is more than enough legal authority on the statute books right now today to secure the borders. The problem is political will. We've had Democrats and Republicans unwilling to actually get the job done. I give you my solemn word today. If I am elected president, we will secure the border. And let me tell you how. We're going to start by building a wall that works. You know, existing federal statute requires the federal government to build over 700 miles of double-layered fencing. You know how much Obama has allowed to be built?
30 miles.
36 miles. In a Cruz administration, we will build the entire wall of the entire fence. You know, when you spend time on the border, as I've done, when you visit with law enforcement down there, you ask what's most effective. They tell you over and over again, boots on the ground. Nothing is more important than boots on the ground. We will triple the U.S. Border Patrol. But you also need tools and technology. That's why we're going to increase fourfold the fixed-wing and rotary-wing aircraft to monitor the border and to alert immediately when there's an attempted illegal crossing. Beyond that, we're going to put in place a strong E-Verify system so you cannot get a job without proving you're here legally. Now that's existing federal law right now, but we don't have the political will to do it.
That's right.
A Cruz administration will follow the law and get that done. We will also put in place a biometric exit-entry system on visas. Right now, about 40% of illegal immigration comes from visa overstays. Not people crossing in illegally. They come legally, and then they just don't leave. For many years, federal statutes have required a biometric exit-entry system. You think about it, FedEx can track a package anywhere in this country at any given moment. You can pull up on your iPad and figure out, right now my package is over Detroit. And yet the federal government has no idea which visa holders are here and which ones have left because they don't bother to even check. We will get it done. And we will also work cooperatively with the state and local law enforcement, empowering them not as enemies but as partners in enforcing federal immigration. It's coming. And then we will restore the rule of law. Barack Obama has put into place 20 lawless and illegal memoranda and executive orders on amnesty. Now it's interesting, before he did this, President Obama was asked, "Do you have the authority? Will you grant us amnesty?" And his response, he said, an emperor. I don't have that authority. Under the Constitution, I can't ignore federal immigration law. Just a few months later, I guess as the election was approaching, under his own terms, apparently, he became an emperor.
He's not wearing any clothes.
If I am elected president, on the first day in office, I will rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional And let me point out, there's some Republicans candidates for president who don't want to answer that question. They don't want to answer that question, would they rescind those illegal executive orders, or sometimes they answer them one way on English stations and another way on Spanish stations.
Bush?
I think that's a question every Republican candidate needs to be asked and needs to answer. Would you maintain the lawless Obama amnesty programs, or would you cancel them on the very first day in office? And we need to end the amnesty slush funds right now. They use the fees from legal immigrants to fund the amnesty program for people here illegally. They're literally robbing the people who follow the law to pay for the amnesty for those who are violating. We are going to restore our enforcement capacity, and we are going to end catch and release. It is no longer going to be the case that we apprehend people here illegally, say, okay, come to a court date in 6 months, bye-bye, and we never see them again.
Nope.
And then there are criminal, illegal aliens. You look at sanctuary cities. There are 360 sanctuary jurisdictions in the United States of America. In a Cruz administration, we will end sanctuary cities. Each of those jurisdictions is powerfully dependent on federal funds. Like little piglets suckling. A Cruz administration will say to any jurisdiction, if you are defying federal immigration law, if you are refusing to honor federal detainers, your federal money is cut off. In the year 2013, the Obama administration released to the public over 104,000 criminal illegal aliens. Released them. Among those were 193 murderers.
Whoa.
Illegal aliens with homicide convictions that they released to the public. Among those were roughly 400 with sexual assault convictions. Among those were over 16,000 with drunk driving convictions. You know, a couple of months ago, the head of Obama's immigration enforcement was testifying in front of the Judiciary Committee. And I asked her a few gentle questions. In particular, I asked her, I said, how many murderers did the Obama administration release this week? I don't know. is what she said. How many rapists? I don't know.
She don't care.
How many drunk drivers? I don't know.
Don't care.
In a Cruz administration, the answers to those questions will be zero,
Zero.
zero, and zero.
Zero.
You know, we all saw the tragic consequences of releasing criminal illegal aliens of sanctuary cities. Just a few months ago in San Francisco. With the tragic murder of Kate Stein. Beautiful young lady walking on the pier with her dad, having a beautiful evening. Minding her own business.
And the president ignores it.
That's right.
Has the president even ever uttered her name? The president has plenty of time for Ahmed the Clock Kid. But no time for Kate Stanley. You look at Kate. She was shot by a repeat felon. Had been in and out of jail. Had been deported over and over and over again. But because we don't secure our border, he came across over and over and over again. And he came to San Francisco. Why? Because San Francisco proudly calls it a sanctuary city. San Francisco proudly welcomes illegal aliens, and it proudly defies federal laws with violent criminal illegal aliens. It says it doesn't matter. We welcome them to our jurisdiction.
Wow.
You want to understand the stakes of what this fight is about? Nothing puts it better than the words of Kate Steinle as her father held her in his arms. Her last words were simply, "Help me, Dad." Look, as the father of two daughters, I cannot imagine the agony of looking at your little girl as she breathes her last breath. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Help us, Ted.
We're going to help this country, and we're going to solve this problem. You know, just last week I tried once again in the U.S. Senate to pass Kate's Law. Now, I introduced Kate's Law in the Senate. It provides for a mandatory minimum 5-year prison sentence for any aggravated felon who illegally re-enters this country. Now, when I tried to pass it in the Senate, Harry Reid, the Democrat, stood up and objected. And Harry Reid said, well, the problem with it is it's too expensive. Help me on this. When has Harry Reid ever thought anything was too expensive?
Yeah, really.
This is a man who has overseen Barack Obama building $18 trillion in national debt. And he says it's too expensive to lock up murderers and rapists.
Wow.
And then the second thing he said is anti-immigrant. Now, I'll tell you my response. I said, you know, the Democratic leader just said it's anti-immigrant to want to lock up murderers and rapists as the son of an immigrant who came legally to this country. Let me tell you, that's offensive. You think immigrants are somehow opposed to locking up murderers and rapists? Only if you are the Democratic Party where you're pandering and scaring and trying to divide people on racial and ethnic lines. Every single one of us wants to protect our kids, and every single one of us should agree that murderers like Kate Steinle's murderer, if he'd been locked in jail, Kate Steinle would still be alive.
That's right.
And then we need to reform legal immigration. Now, I am a supporter of legal immigration, following the rules coming to America seeking the American dream. But legal immigration needs to be structured so that it serves America's needs, so it benefits our nation rather than undermining our nation.
That's what it used to be.
That's why I'm calling for changing the legal immigration system to focus on skills, bringing in high-skilled workers who can create jobs and add to the economy and create economic opportunity for everyone. On ending chain migration and following the pattern that country after country has done of bringing in doctors, bringing in people who can meet needs we have here, looking at the needs of the American people instead of taking away their jobs. It is also well past time that we enforce the public charge doctrine. What is the public charge doctrine? It is existing law that says you cannot come legally to this country unless you and your sponsor can certify you will not become a public charge. You will not become dependent on the government. You know, right now, each household headed by an illegal immigrant receives, on average, $14,000 in government benefits. And for those coming here legally, they should be coming to achieve the American dream, not to be dependent on the American taxpayer. Related to that, very few countries on earth have the laws we have here that says any child born on this soil, whether or not their parents are here legally or not, is given one of the most precious and incredible gifts imaginable, automatic U.S. citizen. It is well past time to end birthright citizenship. Now, you want to understand how these existing laws are making a mockery of what we have. You should go home and Google the phrase birth tourism. There's a whole abundant industry of people coming from all over the world, women 7-8 months pregnant. They get a tourist visa, especially from Asia. It's very popular coming from Asia to California. They get a tourist visa, they spend a whole bunch of money, and their baby is born in America, so their baby is automatically an American citizen. That's not the way our immigration system is meant to work. If someone wants to come to this country, we have laws set up that you go and apply, and you go and demonstrate you won't be a public charge, and you go and demonstrate you have the skills to add to the economy. We welcome people from all over the world, but we shouldn't welcome people defying and gaming our laws. And I want to talk now about the H-1B program. You know, the H-1B program is a program that, as it was originally designed, I think had a good intention. As it was originally designed, it was designed to bring in very high-skilled workers, to bring in computer scientists, to bring in PhD engineers that would generate economic growth and jobs. And as it was designed, it was a program that I have supported, and if it operated that way, I would continue to support. But all of us have been stunned by report after report after report of giant companies abusing the H-1B program.
Disney!
Here in Orlando, you've seen firsthand Disney not bringing in PhD computer scientists, but bringing in relatively low-skilled IT workers, bringing them in order to lay off American workers, and then the final indignity, forcing the American workers to train their foreign replacements on the way out. It is an abuse of the system. It is unacceptable, and it will stop. Accordingly, in a Cruz administration, I will immediately suspend the H-1B program for 180 days to conduct an intensive investigation and audit into each of the companies receiving these visas, to disqualify any company that has abused it, and to prosecute any company that has violated it. Manifestation of the Obama lawlessness. Amnesty for those here illegally is one aspect of lawlessness. But another aspect of lawlessness is the fact that the Obama Department of Labor does nothing for giant companies that are making a mockery of our immigration laws and are firing American workers wrongly. Now, for any companies that might be thinking you've got another year of get out of jail free under the Obama administration, let me point out to you, change is coming on January 20th, 2017. In addition to a thorough investigation and audit of the program to make sure we stop those who are abusing the systems, I am introducing a package of fundamental H-1B reforms. Number one, creating an advanced degree requirement. If you want to come in on an H-1B visa, you need to have a graduate degree or a PhD. It needs to be what it was designed for. With a preference for American universities and standards to ensure you don't have foreign diploma mills that are gaming the system. Creating a statutory cooling off period. So if you bring in H-1B workers, you can't lay off American workers for a period of time after that. You're not allowed to trade one for the other. Establishing formal accreditation and recognition requirements for overseas schools. Requiring sworn affidavits about domestic hiring efforts, not just simply taking their word to it, but putting the penalty of perjury on it. And then we look at our refugee programs. Listen, when it comes to asylum and refugees, this is an issue that's personal. There are people who are genuine victims of persecution. And for the history of our country, we have welcomed those who were victims of political and religious persecution. But President Obama's proposal to welcome to America tens of thousands of Syrian Muslim refugees makes no sense whatsoever. You know, we're seeing the refugees streaming into Europe. One study indicated that of those refugees, roughly 77% are young men. Now that is an unusual demographic profile for a refugee. The director of national intelligence said, it is very likely that among those refugees coming into Europe are a significant number of ISIS terrorists.
Yeah, they probably killed all the women.
Let me say plain and simple, it is lunacy to be bringing refugees into this country who may be terrorists trying to murder them.
Wow, common sense, imagine that.
You know, not too long ago, the State Department met with a number of senators talking about the Syrian refugee crisis. And One of the senators asked them, they said, what percentage of the refugees you're letting into America right now are Christian? 3%. Christians are facing right now persecution and an attempted genocide by ISIS.
Amen.
They are being crucified, they're being beheaded, they are being systematically targeted, and America needs to stand up and be a beacon of hope to persecuted Christians across the country. The Syrian Muslims who we cannot do adequate background checks on, who we cannot determine if they have terrorist ties, many of them are facing a humanitarian crisis, but they need to be resettled in the Middle East in majority Muslim countries.
Yeah! How many in Saudi Arabia taking? 0.
And when we do that, we can focus our immigration system on making the legal immigration system work better. We can take the funds that the Obama administration is siphoning away from legal immigration to fund amnesty. We can put it back in the legal immigration system. So that when you're following the rules, when you're following the laws, we can reduce the paperwork, the waiting periods, the bureaucracy. We can streamline the system for those who are working within the system to make it work better, to welcome people, as Reagan called legal immigrants, Americans by choice. You know, 8 years ago, President Obama told us that he wanted to fundamentally transform this country. A lot of folks in the media dismiss that as empty campaign rhetoric. Let me tell you, President Obama meant every word of it.
That's right.
To let in millions and tens of millions of people every single presidential election. Someone pause for a second and think, what Republican in their right mind would support that?
Traitors!
Listen, if you support amnesty, you're supporting Florida having Democratic governors for as far as the eye can see.
No!
If you support amnesty, you are supporting our national debt growing and growing and growing and growing and bankrupting our kids and grandkids.
No!
If you support amnesty, you're supporting the Democratic Party's assault on religious liberty, assault on our Second Amendment, assault on our privacy. If you're supporting amnesty, you're supporting Common Core that the big government Democrats... If you're supporting amnesty, you're supporting the Obama-Clinton abandoning of the nation of Israel. If you're supporting amnesty, you're supporting the Obama-Clinton weakness and appeasement to radical Islamic terrorism. Indeed, the Democratic unwillingness to utter the words radical Islamic terrorism. If you are supporting amnesty, you are supporting the Ayatollah Khamenei having nuclear weapons in Iran.
No!
That's why the Democrats support it. I understand that. But for all the pundits who say, gosh, the only way to win is nominate a candidate who's well-liked in Washington who supports amnesty. If we do that, we will lose. Yesterday, when I was in the Newark airport, a man walked up to me. It's an Indian man from India. He's a doctor. He came, shook my hand, and hugged me. He said, I came to America legally. He said, it took me over 10 years. It cost me thousands of dollars. I paid lawyers. I waited in line. I wanted to come to America. I practice medicine now in America. He said, thank you for standing for legal immigrants like me who follow the rules and believe in them. Some of our friends in the media, I use that term loosely, will describe a serious plan to secure the border and solve this problem as somehow anti-immigrant.
No, not at all.
Now, oddly enough, they don't think it's anti-immigrant when Harry Reid stands on the Senate floor and says every immigrant will be offended by trying to lock up murderers and rapists.
Baloney.
That's offensive when you, the Democratic leader, believe all immigrants agree with the murderers and rapists. This is common sense. This is who we are as American people. We can make this work. We know how to solve these problems. What is missing is the political will to get it done. The strength of our campaign is here today. It is the men and women across this country. It is the grassroots army that is coming together and standing together to say no more. That's a much better response. You know, every speaker lives in terror that you'll be talking, say the word in conclusion, and everyone cheers. So that's a much better response. I want to close with two things, two stories, both about my dad. Yeah, many of y'all have gotten to know my father. As you know, I'm the shy, soft-spoken one in the family. But you know, 3 years ago when I was being sworn in to the Senate, as I stood on the Senate floor, I couldn't help but think back to 1957. Think back to my dad as an 18-year-old kid coming to America. If anyone had gone up to that teenage immigrant washing dishes and told him that 5 decades hence, his son would be sworn into office as a senator representing the state of Texas, and just a few years later would be running for president of the United States.
Sworn in as president. Yep, president.
That 18-year-old kid never could have believed, never could have imagined that to be possible. And yet, as I stood on the Senate floor with my hand on my dad's Bible, up in the Senate gallery looking down was my father, with tears streaming down his face. It's one very, very small example of the incredible promise of America. No nation in the history of the world has allowed so many millions of people to come with nothing and achieve anything. I tell you now, you can and will bring that back.
President Cruz.
Because something else my dad has said to me many, many times. He said, I saw my freedom taken away from me once, and I'll be damned if I let it happen to me again. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're going to do together.
Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Ted Cruz. Buddy, you ready?
You're going to finally get it.
You will be our next president. No greater representation.